Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 12 for the Shadows of Darkain campaign. In the last episode, we left off with our team face to face with Commander Fisk in the dungeon below Belmont Castle. Now, the commander was expecting us. He's reading the spines of his books collection on the bookshelf behind his main desk. Our team, we wait patiently for him to acknowledge us. Moments later, he does take one book out of the shelf and holds it by its side as he turns around, facing the team. Let's roll to see what happens, or what he says. So we'll be using one page Mythic for this episode. 3, a benefit, 49, a large benefit. So the book itself is going to be a large part in this episode, I have a feeling. Now, the commander, Fisk, who's right here, let's put his card in play. He's holding the book as he walks by his desk in front of it and then kind of leans back on the desk, crossing his arms with the book in his hands. He asks the team, mainly Ellis, and Commander Fisk's voice, if we draw his card here, I won't be too much in the character, but just a representation of him. I'm thinking Commander Fisk is so something I want to try to do is assign fictional characters from other mediums like movies or shows instead of just completely creating one from scratch. That way, I'm a movie guy. I love watching movies, and I think that really help. It will really help me visualize who I'm talking to. So I think this guy, Commander Fisk, will be the. He will look and sound like the sheriff of Rottingham from uh, Men in Tights, the Robin Hood parody by Mel Brooks. That's how I picture this guy. At first, that's how I was kind of picturing the captain, not Waverly, but Itharian. But we'll get to him shortly. Probably not in this episode, but we will. Once we get to him, we'll choose a pop culture reference for him. So just picture this gentleman who is fairly tall. I don't think Sheriff Ronham was tall, but black beard, black wavy hair, kind of thin, walks very flamboyantly to some degree. That's how we kind of perceived Commander Fisk in the beginning when we first introduced him, but he is righteous, egotistical, and the counter complex. So it does fit the character from the movie. Commander Fisk looks at the book, and he looks back at Ellis, mainly Ellis. He says, "Now, the Lord himself has chosen you, you four, to deal with the Darkain incident, hasn't he?" Ellis nods and says, "Yes, we approached the Lordship, and we were happy to help. But why do I feel a tension in the air?" Ellis replies, "Well, that might just be the natural atmospheric effects of this dungeon that has been here for millennia. However, one thing confuses me. Excluding your skill sets and benefits of being adventurers such as yourselves, such as myself in the past, I want to know why my book was handled, and if you know, by who." So, Commander Fisk is asking the team who handled this book, because he knows for a fact he puts the book back on the shelf in a very specific manner. Whether he has very a strong case of OCD, or he's just very neat and tidy, he noticed the book was out of place. It might have been in the same slot, but it was put in differently. Maybe the spine was the wrong way, or it was the right side up. Ellis looks around, and we're going to try to lie. We don't want to give away that we were down here earlier. We don't exactly want to incriminate the captain either, because again, Captain Etherian is on neutral ground at the moment. But we're going to try to lie to the commander at the moment. This will be a +1 roll, and I hope you guys like my new dice tray here. It has a little green screen foam thing built into the bottom of it. So I thought I'd give that a little try in this. I know the green screen keying is kind of ending up on the mat here, but I thought I'd give that a try in this episode, see how it goes. So we're going to try to lie to the commander, and it's going to be Ellis. So that's a 7 plus an 8. So that is going to be a partial success. He says, here's the complication. So the commander pushes himself forward off the table, walks up to the team, and he says, all right, if it wasn't one of you, somebody was down here, unauthorized, earlier today. As both my guards were very unattentive. I had to get rid of them myself. They were good guards, but not exactly the smartest in the bunch. Perhaps you might know who was down here. Do any of you do? No? And so he's still on it. The complication is that he thinks that one of us knows who was down here. I think I think he thinks that he believes it was the captain, his own. Because again, he's been having trouble with the Captain Etherian as of late, and there seems to be a high turnaround of captains in this place. So Ellis is not going to mention it. He says, I'm sorry, Commander, but I do not know who or what you're speaking of. He looks to Red. Red is nervous. He looks down and he whispers, I don't even know. He's like, I don't know either. He looks to Jules. Jules has that strong, loyal bond to Ellis, and he speaks in long pauses. He says, I don't believe I do. Then Commander Fisk looks to Clovis. Clovis takes a glance at Ellis and then back at Commander. He doesn't say anything. Fisk kind of leans forward, overshadowing Clovis, and he says, it appears you have something to say, my friend. Ellis looks to, kind of turns his eyes, glances at Clovis, and deep down he's saying, don't do anything stupid, don't say anything about the captain. Clovis is going to either lie or give away the truth. I don't think Clovis is a big fan of the captain. However, if Clovis screws things up, the captain will become a bother for us. He will slow down this campaign, or this path, the Darkain path. Ellis is trying to give him like trying to scream in his mind, don't say the captain, do not say the captain. So Clovis kind of straightens up. He brushes off his shoulders, and he says, I don't believe I care. And the commander, does he take that lightly? Does he retaliate? Let's see. Does the commander take offense to that statement? I'm going to say 50-50. He doesn't. He smirks, kind of laughs, and then turns around, walks back to his desk. Then he turns on again with his cape blowing in the non-existent wind. He paces himself. Well, if it wasn't you four who were down here earlier today, if it wasn't my moronic guards, and none of you know who took it, then I can simply guess who did, as there's only one other individual, who has been seen down here. And I believe you four know who I'm about to speak of. And then he says the following. He says, Captain Hetherian, wasn't it? So he's still on this. I'm going to write this down because this is a very important fact, which is believes Captain Hetherian took the book. Took, meaning like picked it up. The commander says, I'm quite aware of the captain's fascinations for powerful, rare artifacts, especially one like this book, you see. This isn't just some regular run-of-the-mill book. It possesses a very, very strange dark magic. But I, for one, don't wish to open it at this moment. Ellis says, so what does this have to do with us? Commander replies, well, you see, if the captain took this book without my permission, and even laid his hands on the cover, there is no way to open it without a certain key. And that key is on my possession. And I believe this is what the captain has already, or we found this out already. So it's nothing new to us. Ellis takes a step forward and says, Commander, what is the point of this discussion? What does this book have to do with us, Darkain, the city, or even the captain? The commander walks back to his chair, and he sits down, puts the book on the desk. He takes the key out. He says, this book has been down here for generations, far before my great-great-grandparents were even alive. Or let's say he says, I'm going to walk that back. He says, this book has been down here for generations. Has very many, many mysteries, but I had the honor of reading it myself in the presence of Lord Balthazar. Now, I'm revealing these details to you because I believe you four can help me. You see, with the recent rise in attacks on the city, we need to fight magic we need to fight dark magic with dark magic. And this book is the only one in our collection that has such a power. I don't want the hands of that moron, Captain Hetherian, taking this book for himself. However, I believe I can trust you four. If I were to open this book, may I have the assistance of Clovis to interpret? So Clovis looks around. He says, me? I thought you were an expert of that book. Commander Fisk replies, well, I probably know a few spells from here, but, however, you are a wizard, and a very fine one at that. I've seen you in battle against the creatures outside these doors. I'd say that you are the one who is destined to open this book and discover its secrets. Now, Ellis is feeling a little mysterious here because this is unraveling very strangely. The Commander Fisk is, let's say, I'm gonna write this down. Okay, so Fisk wants Clovis to handle the book for some reason. Clovis takes a step forward. He looks at the book, then back at Commander Fisk. He says, What is in it for us, my team? Ellis kind of smiles because he knows Clovis is trying to play leader here. Fisk also smiles, looks back at the book. He puts the key into the slot of the book and turns it. It clicks. The buckle opens up. The room starts to turn dark. There's a strange aura coming from around the book. Fisk stands up and steps in front of his desk once again. He puts his hand on the cover of the book like this. He says, Clovis, I'm here for a moment. Clovis looks to Ellis, and he nods. But Clovis walks up to the desk, again, somewhat being overshadowed by Commander. He says, here, put your hand on the cover. Clovis puts his hand on the cover, and as he does, his mind turns blank. He sees a vision. And I will write this down because this is going to be a big part. Clovis has a vision from the book. As he touches the book, he sees the following. Let's roll for it. 2 descriptors, or the usual, we'll do action descriptors. 25. He sees something being created. 39. He sees something being created that's heavy, large. It is a giant, shadowy figure in the sky. He sees clouds being created above Riverport, and it is an enormous hand that is overshadowing the city in its exact same size of the city itself. It turns day to night, and the clouds taking form of the hand slowly lowers to the ground and covers the entire city, blankets the entire city in a dark fog, a very, very dark fog. As it darkens the ground and the areas around the city, he can hear screaming. He can see children, families turning to mindless souls, mindless lost souls, as their full metaphysical bodies, or their physical forms, turn to shadowy creatures, demons. The smoke continues to envelop the entire city. The tavern, as you've seen earlier, turns into all buildings in the Riverport turn corroded and almost destroyed after some kind of decay effect. And then we now are back with Clovis. His hand is starting to turn like a charcoal color. He pulls his hand off and stumbles back, while the commander still has his hand on it. The commander, strangely enough, is not seeing what Clovis is seeing. Cleveland, Cleveland for Family Guy. Clovis covers his hands and steps back, looking at the commander in the book. Now the book is not open. The locket, the belt is unhooked, but he's shaking his head, clearing his eyes, and Clovis says, "What the hell did I just see? What was that?" Commander says, "I don't actually know." He takes his hand off the book. He looks to the team. It seems this book can only be opened by magic users such as yourself. Anyone who is in tune with magic, whether dark, light, can maintain and hold this book while it's open. Anyone can pick this book up while it's locked, even open to an extent, such as myself, as I've handled this book for quite some time. But I've never been able to actually open it myself. So Clovis is still shaking off what he just saw. Let's write down what he saw, because that's a very important moment in this plot. So basically, destruction, shadows, Riverport, fog. There was let's see, death, shadow hand, There was Decay, demons, etc. So it's all symbolic. Perhaps it is a vision of the future. We just don't know at this point. But Clovis walks back up to the book, and Ellis takes a step forward. He does this. He says, "Wait, wait, Clovis. Are you sure about this, my friend?" Clovis is almost like an entirely different person now. He turns to Ellis, and then he looks back at his hand. Now his hand is kind of turning back to normal. The decay, kind of decay, the shadowy force that took over his hand is starting to subside. He says, he tells Fisk, Commander Fisk, "I see why you needed us. You needed me specifically, didn't you?" And the commander smiles. He turns around, looks at his bookshelf, walks menacingly towards the bookshelf. He says, "Yes, that is partially correct. I didn't need someone like you in this dungeon. I have to admit, it took some time finding someone with your caliber and resistance to magic. But you weren't my first choice. Let's just say that Lord Balthazar himself was a potential contestant for handling this book. But like I said, you four, this, or whatever it is you saw, is what impending doom lies over Riverport. And you four have strangely enough been chosen. And I believe this book, in the hands of Clovis, can counteract the magic, the dark magic, that is about to be bestowed upon our city." So Ellis explains what he saw to Commander. He says, "Commander, I saw death, destruction, shadow, decay. The citizens of Riverport were being turned into mindless zombies of darkness, demons. There was a large, shadowy figure, a hand the size of the city, encompassing the entire city itself. Fog, it was screams and death. I've never witnessed anything like it before. It's like a nightmare." The commander says the commander is going to walk back to his table, he puts his hand on the book, and says, he taps it. "Like I said, Clovis, this book is something quite special. It is our most powerful artifact in our collection. I don't just show this to anyone, but if anyone were to dare take this from my collection, it would mean death upon themselves. As I suspected, most likely the captain himself wanted it for his own gain. I don't know what the captain, Aetherius, is doing. I don't want to assume anything at the moment, but I have my suspicions. However, we have a bigger problem here, and that is Darkain." So Ellis walks up to Clovis to check on him. He's like, "Are you good?" He's like, "Yes, I'm fine." He turns around and walks back to the team and kind of stands in the shadows. He's still thinking about what he saw. Ellis says, "Quite, Commander. This is definitely a lot to take in, especially for my friends. What can we do to help? We were hoping to speak to you at some moment, at some time, but it appears this is the turning point of our quest." The commander presents a few options to the team. He says, "Oh, let's cross off some things on the path here." So the commander, I don't think, is entirely a bad person at the moment, at least from what we perceive. It is still odd that he comes down here every half an hour. Maybe he comes down here to research the book or try to attempt to read it, but he's never been able to fully open it, or at least read it. I think he's been able to. He probably has some magical experience with magic, and he's probably been able to open the book to an extent, but not long enough as perhaps Clovis might be able to handle. So we know the book is some kind of magical artifact of dark magic. So let's say this: the book. Oh, what is the book called? Let's see. Clovis steps forward and from the shadows, interrupts Ellis and Fisk. He says to the commander, Commander, I must know, from what I saw, what is the name of that book? I don't recognize the writings. So the book itself, it has like a skull on it with two kind of darkened red eyes, with like an open mouth. The skull it's kind of partially decaying. Commander says, "Well, actually, does the commander know what the book name is?" I'm actually wondering if he doesn't. I don't think there's actually a name for this book. Let's say likely he knows. 68. He doesn't, but he has a name for it himself. So the book has no name, has no known name yet. But the commander, he says, this book, it has no name. But there are many titles given to it by its previous owners. I, for one, call it the Book of Lost Souls. It's only fitting. So he calls it the Book of Lost Souls. No, let's call it the Book of Decay. He says, I, for one, call it the Book of Decay. I like that better. Book of Decay. Clovis is thinking, I think he is getting a little. Remember, he's a former cultist, which he hasn't really told much people. I think Ellis is probably the only one who knows he's a cultist. Clovis is getting very power hungry here. I think this is a very crucial moment in the story, in Clovis' kind of his own personal storyline. He's seeing as Ellis and Clovis, as I'm sorry, Ellis and Commander Fisk are speaking. Clovis' eyes focus on the book. The book, only he can see a strange glow and aura coming from the book itself as he locks it back up, as if the book is locked once again. He can hear voices and the screams from the vision he saw earlier as he's fixated on the book. His eyes turn almost. They look like a blank expression on his face, like he's reliving what he just saw. He closes his eyes for a moment, and the sounds of screams become louder. Suddenly, while Ellis and Fisk are talking, the book starts to shake on the table. Like this. It starts to shake on the table. Let me grab a book that's about the size of it. I'm going to say I have quite a few books here on my left. Let's try the Fate Core system. So the book starts to shake. Like it's on a table. Maybe it's on a pedestal like this. It starts to shake, and it starts to float. As Ellis is strangely not becoming attuned to the book, he starts to shake his head, and he starts to kind of not scream but pant. He says, "Get on my head." He starts shouting, "Get on my head!" And I think the book is possessing Clovis. Ellis turns around, looks at the book, then looks at Clovis, and Clovis is getting worse. He's starting to shake, and he there's a strange aura around him as he's kind of. Think of it like this. Think of Vegeta. I'm going to do a lot of Dragon Ball Z references, but the Buu saga, Vegeta taken over by the power of Majin of Babidi, where he gets the Majin symbol on his head. So that's what's happening to Clovis. He's screaming, head going back and forth, and he feels like somebody's taking over his head. And then Commander Fisk stands up in excitement. He's never seen such dark magic before. Fisk says, "My gosh, how exhilarating!" Ellis looks to Commander and says, "You bastard! That's my friend right there. What's happening to him?" And Fisk says, "I have no idea." Well, actually, let's roll for it. Does Fisk know what's happening to Clovis? We know it's something to do with the book. Let's roll for it. Does Fisk know? I'm going to say 50-50. I just don't know. He doesn't. Fisk doesn't know. He says, "I have no idea. I've never seen this before, but I'm assuming it's from the book itself. There's some kind of telepathic connection to it after Clovis himself touched it." And Ellis screams to the commander, "Do something! He's What's happening to him? And then Clovis, eyes open, and it's just like stars. It's just a black void in his eyes, and he stands still. Then he collapses. He falls forward and collapses. So for this, I'm gonna deduct some HP or health from Clovis. I'm gonna say he takes D4 damage. Let's draw a D4. 4. Wow. So 6, 5, 4, 3. He's on a 3 out of 7. Clovis takes some damage. His team goes by his side. They check on him. They're shaking his. They're shaking him. Clovis, wake up! Clovis, Clovis, what's wrong? What happened to you? Red and Jules are standing there. Ellis runs up and kneels down, checks on him. He's like, does someone give him? Does anyone have a potion? And the commander is still standing there, witnessing what's happening. The commander looks back at the book. Fate. How ironic, fate. And the book settles back down, and the key starts to shake. Commander takes the key out, and the book is back to normal. It's calm. The aura from it stops. Clovis, he awakens. No potion assist, but he is worn out. He's extremely worn out. So they help him up. Clovis kind of stumbles against the wall. He falls down on the ground, or he collapses against the wall. He falls down on his butt, and he's sitting against the wall. He's breathing heavily. He's just, what happened to me? Where am I? He's looking at his team. So you three, what happened? And Alice is kneeling in front of him. He's like, my friend, you gave us kind of stare. You were screaming and shouting, and your eyes were pitch black. So suddenly, one second, guys. I'm gonna take a little water break. Okay, we're back. So Clovis is trying to recollect what just happened. He's again sitting on the ground against the wall. Commander Fisk has a smirk across his face. He walks around the task up to the team and says to Ellis, "It seems your friend has become in tune with the book. I've seen this before. Or actually, no, he's never seen this before. I'm sorry. He said, it seems your friend shares some kind of connection with the book. This is quite strange, and does indeed complicate things." Ellis says, "Well, how so?" Manner says, "Well, as you four are quite aware, it has been apparent that this Darkain character most likely is going to be endangering our city quite some time in the near future. And this book was our only real tool against such fierce dark magic. However, if Clovis can't tolerate this magic, then what luck do we have?" So Commander, he's pacing as he's speaking. He sits back down, and then does the finger pyramid of yoga contemplation on his chair. Clovis thinks for a moment. He's beginning to get his senses back. He sits up and stands by himself. The team kind of is prepared to help him, but he stands up by himself. He says, "Let me see the book once more. I believe I know what just happened." So Ellis does indeed know what happened. He is a magic user. And let's roll to see what happened to him. So 12, change, 49. Large. It was a very large change. So that does make sense, actually. It's like Vegeta being taken over by Majin. He is now in tune with the book. Clovis stands up. He seems to be much better, and he does receive a strange D4 of healing. And it's back to 4, so he feels better. Let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he's back to full health. That was a temporary reduction in health. Ellis says, "Clovis, you look fine. What happened to you?" He says, "I think I know what just transpired in me. My body. I was adapting to the magic. I've never experienced such power before. However, it seems now I might be able to actually handle it, at least for a short amount of time. So he touches the book once more, and Ellis says, "No, wait, no, don't." And Commander's just watching. He touches the book, like, let's get the fate book back. He touches the book, like this. Nothing happens. The book does have a kind of cloud of aura around it, but he doesn't feel any different. So I will note now that he is attuned to it. Bulbous tells Fisk, at least based on my... And now he says, I've theorized that this book can only be handled by one magic user at a time, and it appears to have chosen me. So Commander Fisk smiles. He stands up. He says, "Fantastic. This is quite the turn of events." Suddenly, the belt, the lock, unlocks automatically without the key and opens up. And the first page opens, like so. And as the book opens, let's see what happens. We'll write down the book opens up. Much like from Harry Potter, that map that you have to reveal itself shows who's walking around. The book starts to reveal on the first page. Again, there's probably 100 plus pages. On the first page, it reveals a map of the entire Riverport city, though it looks ancient. Commander, now can the team see it? Let me put this away. Can the team and Commander see what Clovis sees? I'm going to say 50-50. They can indeed. It's very bright. So there's red outlines of the city of Riverport. And Clovis says, "You guys can see this, can't you?" The commander says, "Yes, it's exhilarating. This is very, very strong magic, apparent." The team looks at the book and says, "Isn't that looks oddly like a Riverport, but smaller?" Clovis looks at the book, and the commander says, Clovis continues to look at the book. He's kind of feeling it out. He's learning the in and outs of the map. Commander leans forward and says, "Yes, though I'd say that was many, many years ago, when the city was just a town, very young. You can see here, as it's just off the East Harbor. But there's Belmont Castle, and you can see there's a castle. There is a much smaller city, and it gets a little bigger towards the bay. So this picture, this map, is of the city, but at a much earlier drawing, as it's magically enchanted, apparently. So Clovis attempts to pull the next page, but he can't. The page is stuck. He says, "I can't turn it." Commander tries to. He's like, he says, "Interesting." He reaches in for the book, but gets sparked like a red shock. He goes and he twitches back. He says, "My God, how strange! Only you seem to be able to touch the book now." And Clovis kind of smirks. He smirks inside, and he says, "Yes, but I can't even turn the page." Then you see a glow on the map, right in the center of the city, and it's moving. He says, "That's strange. Do you guys see this too? I see some kind of glowing marker in the middle of the map. It's moving towards the harbor." And then the team looks at each other, and they don't see it. They said, "No, we don't see it. We just see we only see the city outlines itself." So Ellis takes the book. Or, I'm sorry, Clovis takes the books and closes it, and he puts the belt over. And Clovis says, "Commander, I believe whoever that marker was is someone of great interest to you." Commander kind of looks up and says, "Quiet. It looks like you have something in mind." Clovis says, "I need the key." And then everyone looks at each other. Commander Fisk says, "This key does not leave my person unless I'm dead. And apparently you don't need it." And he says, just as a precaution." Now let's try to persuade the commander. I think Ellis. I believe he wants the key just in case he gets locked out of it. I think it's more of a precaution than anything. But let's see if Clovis can convince the commander for this. Oh my gosh, 11. Let's see. 11 plus 2, so that's going to be 13. That's definitely a high roll. The commander looks at Ellis and his team. He acknowledges that now the book is in his hands. That means the book belongs to Clovis. I think because Clovis recognizes the book is practically his now, and the commander just has a very tight ownership of the key. He always felt like it was his as part of him, like it's his, it's his lucky key. Maybe it's just something he felt used to wearing all these years. He takes the key, the neck. It's on a necklace. He takes it off his neck, and he puts it back in his hand. He looks at it for a moment, then he looks to Clovis and hands it over. He says, "This is not something I would be doing quite lightly. You bet to handle that book with your life, or I'll come and hunt you down myself." And he gives the key to Clovis. So Clovis takes the key. So right now, Clovis has two new items. I'm gonna drop. Actually, I have space for this, so I thought I didn't, but I actually have room. He has uh, a star item, so he has a key for the book, and then another item, the Book of Decay. Okay, so uh, Clovis has a book. And he puts the book in his bag, and he says, "Well, I have a feeling I have a feeling we must follow that marker on the map. Last time I saw it was on his way to the harbor. Whoever it is, most likely it's a certain individual of much great interest." He looks to Ellis, and Ellis says, "You're turning into quite a leader, Clovis." And Clovis smiles. "Yes, well, don't get used to it." Then he walks towards the door. He turns back to Commander, and he tells Commander, "Commander, we appreciate your time. Will there be anything else you need from us?" Now the Commander, he sits back down at his desk, looks around the dungeon, and then he looks back at Clovis with a very interesting stare. He says, "No, that's really all I was hoping for. I'm glad the book found a new owner, at least for now. Once you finish with it, if you could return it, I'd be most grateful." Ellis kind of interrupts. He says, "Oh, trust me, we will. We don't want that in our hands. Right, Clovis?" And Clovis kind of pauses for a moment. He says, "Yes, right." And then the door, then suddenly, let's roll for if anything happens while they're down there about to leave. Let's roll if anything happens. So let's do 50-50. Nothing really out of the ordinary happens. Okay, so they walk to the door, and they open the door, and as they do, they see the captain at the top of the stairwell about to enter. The guards letting him in. Or I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. Not the captain Hitharian at the stairs. He's outside. They can hear chatter coming from outside. So they walk up the stairs and open the door, and they see right down. This is time of. I forgot to put in the time of day. So noon. There we go. So they walk upstairs and they open the door. The guards are having an argument with the captain Hetharius. Hetharius sees Ellis and the three. Now remember, right now Clovis is holding the book, or well, he puts it in the bag, but I think you can see the bulge of the book coming out of his bag. So the captain, does the captain see the book? I see very likely. Ooh, he does. That's right on the money. Yep, he does. The captain says, "You four are still here. What do you?" And then he stops. He looks at Clovis. Clovis kind of puts the book behind himself. He says, "What do you got in your bag there? Show me." Then suddenly he pulls a weapon out. He pulls his sword out. He unsheathes his sword. The guards aren't really sure what to do. They look at each other, acting confused. Commander Fisk is still downstairs. I don't think he's too aware of what's going on. Ellis puts his hand in front of the captain. Says, "Captain, what are you doing? We're on our way to dealing with something about the Darkain issue." He said, "We're about to leave. What are you doing?" Captain is looking at Clovis, ignoring Ellis. He points the sword at Ellis. He says, "I will not ask again. Take the book out, or I will, or have you arrested." Clovis is not. I don't think Clovis is scared. He's just standing there, like it's not happening. He tells he tells the captain, "Captain, I have something. Something was given to me, rightfully so. You can't have us arrested for having our own property on our person." And let's see if that will. That wasn't exactly much. I don't think that's really worth a roll. So Clovis continues. He says, "Oh, he's getting a little, like I said, tasteless, stubborn." He says, "Do you mean this?" He shows the book to the captain. Captain's eyes open wide. He takes a step back. "The book. How did you get your hands on it? That's impossible." He's like, "That's impossible." And then Clovis kind of laughs. He says, "Oh, you see, the commander himself gave me this book. And isn't the commander your boss, your superior? Don't you report to him?" The captain says, excuse my language, "Fuck the commander. Give me that book now." And then he's about to swing his sword. As he's about to swing it, remember this guy has magical abilities. Ellis will roll to see if he can stop the captain from uh, swinging the sword at his friend. So Ellis will use there's no dexterity bonus. So here we go. Ellis is going to pull out his sword, the long sword, and try to block it. And he is not able to. So he's about to pull out his sword, but the royal guard stops Ellis. Says, "Don't you interfere!" And the other royal guard pulls out his weapon. And then at the very same moment, the captain strikes Clovis. We can roll for see if Clovis can dodge. We'll try. 7. He barely manages to dodge, though he takes a swing at Clovis's hand. So he swings, and the sword hits Clovis's hand or arm, and he takes 1 hit damage. So he's down to 6. Does is he able to? Does the book fall out of his hand? Let's say 50-50. The book doesn't. Okay, so Clovis still has the book. He backs up, back to the stairwell, and the captain, for some reason, he's just out of it right now. He's in full force trying to get this book for some reason. He's like, "Give me that damn book!" He ignores Alice and Jules and everyone else. So Jules and Red are trying to restrain the captain. The guards are not really. Let's see if the guards interfere. I think the other guard is going to try to grab Jules. So let's see if Jules can dodge the guard. Dexterity +2. 8 he can, so that's 10. Jules jumps out of the way, but Red is going to try to restrain the captain. They don't want to attack him. He's a city official. He's a guard, so +2 on dexterity. Trying to grab. Yep. Oh, he does it all right. That's a 12. So he grabs the captain. He puts his arms behind him, trying to hold him back. And let's see. This is Red talking. He's nervous. Okay, not the best man for this, but he says, "Captain, what are you doing? You must stop. We're on your side." And this is me another roll for willpower? Can Red convince and Ellis at the same time? The team are telling him to stop. We're on your side. What are you doing? And Clovis is smiling. He feels like this is hilarious to him because again he's tasteless. But we're gonna roll to see if we can convince the captain to stop. +1. And we kind of can. So that is, oh yeah, that's a 10. The captain stops. briefly, his eyes narrow, and he's a little dazed for a second. Then suddenly, Commander Fisk is walking upstairs briskly. You can hear his armor. You can hear his armor clanging with his sword out. He says, "What's happening out? What's happening out here?" And then he stops and he sees the commotion. So now, I'll write down briefly what's going on. So the scuffle with the book. Okay. Now, the commander draws his sword, noticing that Red is holding onto um, the captain. He says, "You, let go of him." Red lets go. He steps back. Captain kind of falls forward a bit, then stops in front of the commander, puts his sword away. Just, "Commander Fisk, I'm sorry. I don't know what got over me." Clovis, Commander notices Clovis is holding the book out in the open. Fisk looks at Clovis and says, "Put that book away, you idiot. Can't be seen with that." And then Clovis just kind of puts the book away casually in his bag. He says, "Captain, come with me right away. We need to discuss something." And they walk back downstairs. The guards, they get back into position like nothing happened. They stand posted. And the team is utterly confused of what just transpired. So, right now, they close the door and they don't exactly know what's happening downstairs. That is something completely different at the moment. That is out of the team's reach and what they can hear. The guards do kind of a what do you call it, a stance with their spears, and they tell the team, "We recommend you leave this area right away. Go about your business, citizens." And so the team, they brush themselves off. They kind of regain their composure, and they leave the door, kind of utterly confused what just happened. Clovis tells Ellis, "Clovis, you need to be careful of that book. It's clear we can't trust the captain one bit at this point." Clovis says, "Yes, I have a feeling we can't trust anybody at this point." And he stops, looking at Ellis. Ellis says, "What is that supposed to mean, friend?" And that's where we'll leave it off for this episode. So, for this ending here, is having Clovis is having second thoughts about something. I think the book corrupted his mind. Okay, so I will leave it at that. Um, that was pretty good. That was mostly story, mostly conversational, almost an encounter with the guard, but luckily we avoided that disaster. But overall, this is pretty good. Some world building. We have the book now. We know what it is. We know what it can do and what it might be doing. It's tracking that individual. Let me write that down. That the book tracks book tracking person of interest near harbor with the marker. First page. Okay, there we go. So that's our episode 12. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you liked the little green screen tray here. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.